My name is Camille Hartley. I'm 34 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've believed that if you work hard enough, love deeply enough, and show up every single day, you can build the kind of family you always wished you'd had growing up. For years, that belief held me together, stitched me up in the places where my childhood left me torn. My little family is my proof of that. Ethan, my boyfriend, might not be perfect, but he's steady, warm, and gentle in the ways I never saw from my own father. And our kids Liam 7 and Maisie 5 are the bright, messy, loud miracles that made our small house feel like a world worth protecting. We're the kind of family who takes photos with flour-dusted noses while making cookies, who still watches the same claymation Rudolph movie every December, who tapes construction paper, stars onto the living room walls in the name of Christmas ambiance. We're not fancy, but we're happy. And none of us knew that one single phone call, one tiny, seemingly innocent call, would become the fuse that lit everything on fire. It was a Tuesday evening. I was wiping spaghetti sauce off the floor. Maisie has a tendency to swing her fork as she tells stories, while Ethan wrestled two wiggling bodies into their pajamas. The house was loud, warm, and chaotic in the way families are supposed to be. When my phone buzzed on the counter and I turned it over, I saw a name I didn't expect. Dad. For a moment, I honestly thought it was a mistake. My father doesn't call me, not unless he needs something or wants to remind me that I should come around more. So when I swiped to answer, I still had the towel in my hand, half expecting this to end quickly. Camille, he said, voice clipped but unusually level. Can you put the kids on? I want to ask them what they want this year. I froze. My father has never, not once in their entire lives, asked my children what they wanted for Christmas. Growing up, he was the type who'd slide a stiff envelope across the table with a 20 inside, saying, "Don't spend it all in one place." That was his version of affection. So hearing him ask about my kids, it felt like a glitch in the universe. But the moment I held the phone out, both Liam and Maisie sprinted toward me like the device was a lottery ticket. "Grandpa," they yelled. I stood there, towel dangling, watching them tell him about Lego sets, sparkly microphones, and bicycles. He laughed. He asked questions. He wrote things down. He even said softly, almost warmly, "All right, I'll see what Santa can do." When the call ended, Maisie bounced on the couch, curls shaking around her face. "Grandpa's getting me the microphone," she squealed. And I let myself believe, just a little. Maybe he was trying. Maybe this year would be different. The next day, the kids drew pictures of their dream gifts. Liam sketched a fire truck red bike with white training wheels and flame decals like he'd memorized every inch of it. Maisie drew a microphone surrounded by stars, each one uneven and adorable. We taped the drawings to the fridge like they were priceless works of art. Ethan laughed when he saw them. "Think your dad got the hint," he teased. I smiled, but deep down there was a familiar tug, a quiet warning stitched into the back of my mind. Something uneasy, something old. My father never gave without expecting control in return. But I pushed the feeling aside. For my kids, I wanted magic this year. Just once. Christmas morning at our house was perfect. Pajamas, cinnamon rolls, crumbs everywhere. Maisie danced around singing off-key carols into a spoon. Liam crashed his toy trucks into pillow forts. By noon, we packed up the car and headed to my parents' house like we had nearly every year. I wasn't excited, but my kids were, and their excitement was enough to pull me through the tightness in my chest. The moment we pulled into the driveway, I noticed Brianna's SUV already parked out front. My older sister, my father's golden child, the son he never let me stand next to. We stepped inside, following laughter from the living room. Liam and Maisie ran ahead, then stopped dead in their tracks. I turned the corner, and the sight hit me like a shovel to the ribs. Wrapping paper everywhere, shiny boxes, torn ribbons. Brianna's twins, same age as Liam, kneeling in the center of it all. Surrounded by a bright red fire truck bicycle, the exact one from Liam's drawing. Flame decals, white wheels, every detail. And right beside it, a pink karaoke microphone with a glittery stand, the exact one from Maisie's picture, even the disco light she'd circled in a catalog. My kids stood perfectly still, Liam's little face crumpled confusion twisting his mouth. "Mom, is that mine?" My breath caught, my heart sank through the floor. Before I could answer, Dad stepped around the corner, holding a mug, laughing at something Brianna had said. When he saw us, his smile flickered, but he recovered quickly. "Oh, you made it? Merry Christmas." Maisie tugged my sleeve. "Mommy, is it mine?" Ethan knelt down, keeping his voice steady. "Let's go sit in the kitchen for a bit, sweetheart." I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I didn't make a scene. I just looked at my sister lounging on the couch, smirking, and something inside me went quiet. We stayed 22 minutes. Liam kept his coat on the whole time. Maisie didn't say one word. No one asked why we left early. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while Ethan whispered, "He knew, Camille. Your dad knew." I didn't answer, because part of me already knew that was true. At 6:43 a.m., my phone buzzed with missed calls from my mother, my father, Brianna, but buried beneath them was a text from Grandma. Just one sentence. "They told the twins the gifts were from your father, not Santa." I shot upright so fast Ethan jolted awake. I handed him the phone. He read the text once, then again. "You've got to be kidding me." "No," I whispered. I don't think they were kidding at all. My father hadn't just ignored my kids. He had used them, used their wishes, used their drawings, used their excitement to glorify Brianna's family, to make her boys the center of everything, to make mine the afterthought he always treated me as. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just hurt. I was furious. Later that day, while Liam and Maisie quietly played, trying not to acknowledge the absence of the gifts they'd dreamed of, Ethan leaned close and whispered, "We're not going back next year." I nodded. No argument needed. We were done. I thought that would be the end. But I was wrong. It was only the beginning. For the first 24 hours after Christmas, I kept waiting for something, an explanation, an apology, even a flimsy excuse. I shouldn't have. I should have known better. But when you grow up being trained to swallow disappointment, part of you keeps hoping someone will finally hand you something different. Instead, the next communication I got from my sister wasn't remorse. It was a voicemail. I didn't answer the call when I saw Brianna's name. I let it go to voicemail, expecting perhaps a weak attempt at smoothing things over. Something like Dad probably mixed things up. But when I pressed play and heard her voice dripping with smug satisfaction, my hand went stiff around the phone. "Hey, Camille. Just wanted to say thanks for leaving early yesterday. Gave the boys more time to play without having to share. And Mom told me your kids didn't get much this year, so we've got some extra stuff if they want to come over next weekend. No hard feelings." I listened to it twice, then a third time. Ethan was standing behind me when he heard the final line, his shoulders tensed, jaw tightening. "She didn't say that," he muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. "Tell me she did not say that." "Oh," I whispered, "she did." The voicemail sat in my phone like a bruise I couldn't stop pressing. And that was just the start. The family group chat lit up the next morning. Pictures, videos, boasting. Brianna's twins were riding Liam's red bicycle through my parents' driveway, boughs still trailing from the handlebars. Another photo showed them howling into Maisie's pink microphone disco lights flashing across their faces. My mother captioned the group photo with, "They're having so much fun, Grandpa really hit it out of the park this year." No mention of my kids, no acknowledgement of the theft, no recognition of the hurt, just celebration. Then came the Facebook posts. A public photo album of Brianna's kids tearing into gifts that weren't theirs. And under one of the photos, my father commented, "Had to pull some strings to get these, but worth it for my boys." My boys. Not my kids, not his grandchildren as a whole. Just the chosen ones. Something in my chest shrank tight. Ethan saw it all. He didn't say much, but the few words he whispered carried more steel than anything I'd ever heard from him. "They're not clueless, Camille. They're cruel." The breaking point came 2 days later. I was in the living room folding laundry while the kids watched a movie when Ethan walked in with his phone held, like it was burning him. "Look," he said, voice trembling with restrained anger. It was a Facebook post shared by Julian, Brianna's husband. A picture of the red bike, captioned, "Uncle Camille knew exactly which one Liam wanted. Good eye, Camille. Fits our little guys perfectly." Ethan shook his head in disbelief. "They're gloating. They know." I stared at the caption, my heartbeat thudding somewhere in my throat. They were flaunting it, showing it off, turning my children's heartbreak into a punchline. I didn't reply. Couldn't. Because just when I thought I'd hit bottom, the ground cracked even lower. New Year's Eve. We were curled up inside the blanket fort, the kids, and I built hot cocoa popcorn glow sticks, the whole spectacle. Liam stayed up past midnight for the first time, thrilled and bleary-eyed. Maisie fell asleep on my lap, holding a marshmallow she never finished chewing. For a few hours, it felt like maybe we were healing. Like maybe the world could soften again. Then at 1:04 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, my cousin. Someone I liked. Someone who's always stayed just a step outside of the family drama. Her message was short. "Hey, thought you should know. Brianna's telling everyone at the party that you stormed out on Christmas because you were mad you didn't get presents. She said your kids didn't even notice and that Ethan is making a big deal out of nothing. People were laughing about it tonight. My chest tightened like someone slamming a door shut inside my ribs. They weren't just ignoring what happened. They were rewriting it, turning me into the villain, painting my kids as oblivious, mocking Ethan, laughing behind our backs like we were characters in some twisted little story they got to control. I read the text once, then again, and for the first time since this all started, I saw red. Not anger, not irritation, not hurt. No, this was something older, sharper, richer, a kind of clarity that told me one simple truth. They started something they weren't prepared to finish. I didn't respond to Rachel, didn't call my parents, didn't text Brianna. Instead, I went to the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and began typing. Not a rant, not a message, a list. A list of every moment, small, large, forgotten, ignored, where they had treated me and later my children as afterthoughts. Every holiday we were sat at the overflow table. Every birthday of mine they forgot. Every time my father praised Brianna's kids but didn't notice Liam reading chapter books early, or Maisie spelling words backwards for fun. Every vacation Brianna's family had paid for while Ethan and I scraped together our own flights and hotel money. Every time I'd been told, don't make a scene. Every time I'd swallowed it. 10 years. 10 years of choking down the same disappointment and calling it normal. When I finished typing, the list was long, too long. I sat there staring at it, hands trembling not with fear, but with something else, something new. This isn't a misunderstanding, I whispered to myself. This is a pattern. And for the first time in my life, I understood something that should have been obvious from the start. They weren't going to stop, not unless I made them. And I wasn't going to play defense anymore, not when it came to my kids. I thought I was preparing for a confrontation. I had no idea a new storm was already brewing, one that would take everything I thought I'd seen, everything. I thought I understood and flip it on its head, because a few days later a letter would arrive. A letter from my father. A letter that would crack everything open. I found the letter on a Thursday afternoon wedged between a heating bill and a grocery coupon booklet. No return address. But I didn't need one. I recognized the handwriting instantly, those rigid all-capital block letters carved into paper like a soldier, stamping orders into stone. My father never wrote like someone having a conversation. He wrote like someone issuing commands. At first, I almost didn't open it. Every instinct told me to drop it straight into the trash. But curiosity, or maybe old habit, kept my fingers moving. I slid a butter knife under the flap and unfolded the single sheet inside. No greeting, no warmth, just 10 clipped, brittle lines. Your behavior on Christmas was selfish. You embarrassed your mother. Brianna has always looked out for this family unlike you. You stormed out without a word. You made your children cry for attention. You turned Ethan against us. You will apologize before you are welcome back. This is your warning. Do not turn your kids against their family. Fix it or stay gone. My hands froze. For a moment, I just stood there in the kitchen, staring at the words, if you could call them that. They felt less like sentences and more like small controlled detonations, each one designed to blow a hole somewhere tender. Selfish embarrassment? Warning. Fix it or stay gone. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't even anger. It was dominance, command, punishment. The tone he'd used my entire childhood sharpened and delivered like a blade. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and tucked it into the drawer beneath batteries and old receipts. I didn't show Ethan, not yet. A part of me didn't want him to see just how fast 4 decades of progress can unravel with 10 lines of ink. That night, the house settled into sleep, but I didn't. I lay awake in the dark, listening to the hum of the fridge, Maisie's light snoring through the cracked door down the hall, Ethan's steady breathing beside me. And still my mind spun and spun. Not with rage, not with indignation. With doubt. Did I overreact? Did I misinterpret the gifts? Was I too quick to leave? Was I turning Ethan against them? Guilt is sneaky like that. It doesn't attack loud. It whispers. And those whispers sounded a lot like my father. In the following weeks, I didn't explode. I didn't break down. Not in the dramatic way movies show it. I simply eroded. Slowly. I'd sit at my work desk staring at emails without clicking them. Skip lunch without noticing. Start laundry and forget to move it to the dryer. Lose track of time and space in ways I wasn't proud of. Every night I replayed Christmas. The bike, the microphone, Liam's confusion, Maisie's silence, my father's smirk, Brianna's lounging. The voicemail, the group chat, the lies, and the letter. Always the letter. It ate through me like acid. Of course Ethan noticed. He always notices. One night in mid-January, after the kids fell asleep and the house finally quieted, he set down his cup of tea and sat beside me on the couch. "You can be angry, Camille," he said gently. "You don't have to carry all of it by yourself." I didn't answer. Couldn't. He reached over and laced his fingers with mine. His grip was warm, patient, steady. "But I'm not letting them break you," he whispered. "Not again." Something about that word again broke through the fog in my chest. I blinked hard, looked down at our intertwined hands, and my shoulders slumped. "It's not just about Christmas," I said softly. "It's everything. My whole life, Ethan. I've been trying to get a seat at a table I was never invited to, and now that I've stopped trying, it hurts more." His thumb brushed the back of my hand, slow and comforting. That was the first crack of light I'd felt in weeks. A small breath of air in a room that had been suffocating me. Little by little, I began to reclaim pieces of myself. Not big dramatic gestures, no declarations, no ultimatums, just quiet shifts, tiny rebellions. I blocked my father's number. It felt petty and freeing. I unfollowed Brianna and Julian on social media, archived the family group chat, took the Christmas drawings off the fridge and placed them inside the cabinet of my home office, tucked somewhere safe. Then I did something I'd forgotten how to do. I woke up early. Not for chores, not for work, for me. I dug out a dusty sketchbook from the back of a drawer. Before kids, before bills, before my father's relentless judgment drawing was the one place where I could breathe. I started with simple things: my coffee mug, the backyard fence, the way Liam's blanket bunched around him when he slept. 15 minutes a morning, that was all. But somehow it felt like an entire world returning. And Ethan noticed. He didn't say anything. He just started waking up early with me, quietly making coffee like he was preserving that sacred little space with his presence alone. Some mornings he'd kiss the top of my head before heading to the kids' room. Other mornings he'd set down a plate of toast next to my sketchbook without a word. Little acts of love, steady, real. Reminders of the home I had built, not inherited. Soon something else began to shift too. I threw myself into the kids in ways that were more present, more joyful than anything I'd felt in months. I volunteered at Liam's school, reading days, art days, lunch hours. Teachers began waving to me in the halls. Maisie and I started weekly Mommy and Me projects. We painted birdhouses, made paper flower bouquets, transformed cardboard boxes into rocket ships. For the first time in forever, I wasn't thinking about my father. I was thinking about my children, and myself, and our little world, and it felt good. Really good. In late February, Maisie came home with a colorful flyer. Family talent show. Students may perform with a parent or sibling. Ethan was the natural performer. He sings beautifully. So I assumed she'd choose him. But she didn't. She barreled into the living room, cheeks flush, curls swinging. "Mommy, you can draw while I sing." I blinked. "You want me to draw on stage?" Maisie nodded with absolute conviction. "I'll sing my princess song, and you draw me with sparkles." Ethan nearly spit out his drink, laughing. "You're booked superstar," he said. My first instinct was to say no. Spotlights make me itch. Stages make me sweat. Eyes make me freeze. But Maisie's face missing front tooth glitter smears on her sweater held so much trust. So much belief. So I said yes. And we practiced for a week. Maisie belted her princess anthem gloriously off-key, while I sketched her in capes, tiaras, fairy wings. We decorated the poster board with glitter that I would later regret tracking through the house. The night of the talent show, I sat cross-legged on stage with my markers while Maisie sang her heart out. The audience applauded, loudly. Later in the car, Liam leaned forward from the back seat and said in the most matter-of-fact voice, "That was really cool, Mom. You're like a magician with drawings." I don't know why that line hit me so hard. Maybe because I felt like a magician again. Visible, valued, enough. And none of it had anything to do with my father or Brianna at all. A week later, a friend from high school, Evan, who runs a local coffee shop with a gallery space, messaged me after seeing one of my sketches online, Ethan's idea. "You ever think about doing a small exhibit? We've got space." I hesitated. Then I said yes. 3 weeks later, 60 people showed up. I expected 12. Ethan brought cupcakes. Liam wore a tie. Maisie handed out homemade stickers that said Team Mom. I stood in that cozy corner of the cafe, surrounded by my art, my family, my community, people who actually saw me, and something in my chest softened. I wasn't rebuilding. I was rising. Quietly, steadily, without them. But peace doesn't last long in families like mine, especially when someone is watching you rise. The next package didn't come in the regular mail. It came by courier, hand-delivered, signed for. Inside, a neatly folded document labeled, "Petition for Grandparent Visitation Rights." My father's name at the top, Liam's and Maisie's names at the bottom. My hands went cold. My heartbeat punched my ribs. They weren't trying to guilt me anymore. They were coming for my kids. And that was the last mistake they were ever going to make. For a long moment, I simply stood there in the hallway, staring at the packet in my hands, like it was some kind of sick joke. The legally stamped papers felt heavier than their actual weight, an anchor dragging every quiet moment of peace I'd rebuilt straight into a storm I hadn't realized was already forming. Grandparent visitation rights. My father's name at the top in those same blocky all-caps letters, and God help me, Liam's and Maisie's names printed neatly near the bottom. I didn't realize my hands were trembling until Ethan walked in, pausing mid-step when he saw my face. "Camille." His voice softened. "What is it?" I didn't have words. Not yet. I just handed him the envelope. He scanned the first page, eyes narrowing, then widening, then darkening into something I had only seen once before, the night Maisie fell off the jungle gym and the doctor took too long to come into the room. "They're suing us," he whispered, "for visitation rights." I nodded, jaw so tight it hurt. Ethan looked up, anger and disbelief twisting in his expression. They really think they can force their way into our kids' lives after everything they've done. Still, I didn't answer. Couldn't. My mind was already moving quick and sharp in ways it hadn't moved in months. I wasn't spiraling. I wasn't doubting myself. I wasn't drowning in guilt. I was planning. Because this wasn't about them hurting me anymore. This was about them trying to wedge themselves into places they had no right to be. And if they wanted a war, then for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to show up unarmed. The next morning, I made coffee packed. Liam and Maisie's lunches, kissed their heads, and watched them run into school, just another normal day to them. Then I drove downtown. I didn't call ahead, didn't ask for an appointment. I walked into the law office a friend had recommended, still clutching the envelope like a bruise that hadn't even finished blooming yet. The receptionist raised a sharp brow when I slid the papers onto her desk. "I need to speak with someone," I said. "Someone who knows how to handle a malicious visitation petition." She eyed the forms, then me. "That makes 3 this month," she murmured. One moment. 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from Claudia Langford, a woman in her mid-40s, with sleek hair, a sharper suit, and eyes that looked like they could slice through sheet metal. She didn't waste time. She read the petition, silently flipped it over, tapped her pen twice, then lifted her gaze. "They don't have a case," she said. "None. But we aren't just going to defend, we're going to go on offense." Something in me straightened. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," she leaned back, folding her hands, "we document everything. Every slight, every exclusion, every pattern of emotional harm. Grandparent visitation requires proof that the grandparent relationship is beneficial. We're going to prove the opposite." Then she smiled, cold and calm. "And once we're done, they'll never try something like this again." I left her office feeling something I hadn't felt since December. Power. Thus began Operation Documentation. For the next 2 months, I became a quiet collector. Old emails, screenshots, voicemails, photos, Facebook posts, messages from family, times, dates, captions. That snide voicemail from Brianna saved. The Christmas photos where Liam's and Maisie's gifts were repackaged for her sons saved. The letter photocopied and annotated. I reached out to people I hadn't spoken to in years, and Cousin Olivia, who told me Brianna once blamed her own mess on me. Aunt Sherry, who quietly admitted she'd always noticed my father was harder on me. An old babysitter who remembered the difference in how my father treated me versus my sister. Each one offered a puzzle piece I didn't even know I needed. Meanwhile, Ethan turned into a one-man data machine. He pulled out old calendars, old texts, old receipts. "Look at this," he muttered late one night, spreading papers across the table. "We paid for every trip to visit them. But when Brianna flew in, tickets were covered. Every single time." He created spreadsheets, comparisons, timelines, color-coded charts of favoritism so sharp and undeniable it almost hurt to look at. By the time Claudia's team compiled everything, the binder was 5 inches thick. It had a title, History of Harm. When I flipped through it the first time, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt sad, because the story wasn't just history. It was my life. But as the past was being documented, the present offered something unexpected. One afternoon, I got a message from my grandmother. Just 3 words. "He doesn't know." I called her immediately. "Grandma, what doesn't he know?" She hesitated then. "That I left him out of my will." My breath hitched. "You, what?" "I changed it last year," she said, tired but firm. "After what he did to your kids. Everything goes to you and the little ones. Even the lake cabin." The lake cabin. The one my father bragged about inheriting for years. The one he told Brianna's boys they'd have rooms in. The one he planned to remodel. I sank into a chair. Grandma, why tell me now? Because he'll find out eventually, she said. And when he does, you'll need to be ready. Her voice softened. That cabin should belong to someone who knows what family actually means. I pressed a hand to my mouth. A new tab went into the binder that night. Asset leverage. Not to use against him, not yet, but it was a card now, a powerful one. One I intended to play only when necessary. While all this was happening, something else began to bloom quietly around us. A community. The neighbors who used to just wave started inviting us over for barbecues. Parents from school offered playdates. Teachers chatted in hallways. People noticed us. They noticed me. And then Evan, the cafe owner, suggested hosting a parent and kid art night inspired by the turnout of my gallery show. I agreed. The night was magical. Kids drew superheroes while their parents sipped lattes. Maisie wore a cape and introduced me dramatically as Captain Pencil. Liam helped run the sign-in table like a small, serious intern. We laughed, we painted, we made a mess. And I realized I was building something better than the family I came from. I was building the family I needed. As the court date approached, Claudia gave me a new assignment. Write a statement, she said. Not a legal one, a personal one. A declaration of who you are and what you want for your children. It took a weekend. 2 late nights, 4 drafts, 12 discarded sheets of paper. But when I was finished, the final paragraph read, I am not severing my children from their family. I am protecting them from a version of family that tells them love is conditional. I grew up believing I was never quite enough. I refuse to let my children inherit that pain. Claudia read it, nodded once. That she said will break them in court. But something in me whispered that legal victory wasn't the end game. I didn't just want to win. I wanted the truth to stand on its own legs so that no one could ever twist it again. So I made one final move. I created a private password-protected site titled, For the Record. Inside, I uploaded everything. The evidence, the screenshots, the stolen gifts, the letter, the timeline, the statements, the will change redacted. At the top, I wrote, You don't have to believe me, you just have to see. Then I sent the link to every relative and waited. 3 days before the hearing, my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something told me to answer. Camille. It was Rachel. Her voice shook. You need to see something, she whispered, but you didn't get it from me. My pulse quickened. See what? I forwarded screenshots to your email from Brianna's private group chat, the one she's in with her college friends and Julian's coworkers. I swallowed. What's in them? Her next words chilled my spine. They've been mocking your kids. And Brianna admitted something about the Christmas gifts. My throat tightened. What did she say? She bragged that she told your dad to buy your kids gifts for her sons, as payback for you always being second place. She said she wanted to see what it felt like to steal your kids' joy. My breath left me. She continued, voice breaking. It's all there, Camille. All of it. I closed my eyes. For the first time in months, I didn't feel powerless. I felt ready. The war they started. It was about to end. And it wasn't going to end the way they thought. The morning of the hearing arrived gray and cold, a sky the color of unspoken things. I woke before the alarm, long before Ethan stirred, long before the kids tiptoed downstairs in their pajamas. I just lay there staring up at the ceiling, feeling the weight of everything that had led us here. Every slight, every humiliation, every time they'd used silence as a weapon, every time they'd twisted the truth into something unrecognizable. But this time I wasn't walking into court as the insecure daughter who spent her life trying to earn a seat at their table. I was walking in as the woman who built her own. Ethan held my hand as we stepped through the courthouse doors. His touch was solid grounding, the kind of steady warmth that reminded me I wasn't facing this alone. Claudia met us in the hallway, flipping through History of Harm like a general reviewing a battle plan. You ready? She asked. I nodded. Liam and Maisie were at home with a trusted friend coloring and eating cereal, blissfully unaware that their mother was in court fighting to protect their entire world. Good. That's how it should be. My parents arrived 15 minutes late. Of course they did. My father wore his old military dress coat as if that stitched-on authority could still command something here. Beside him walked Brianna, her hair perfectly curled for the occasion, her posture flawless, her eyes flicking toward me with smug confidence. She didn't know what was coming. Julian didn't show. Probably decided it wasn't a good look for Instagram. My father avoided eye contact with me. Not once did he look at Ethan. Good. Cowards don't make eye contact. When the hearing began, Claudia stood tall and calm, every movement sharp and deliberate. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't grandstand. She simply presented. Piece by piece, fact by fact, pattern by pattern. The stolen Christmas gifts, the photos, the letter, the voicemail, the group posts flaunting the stolen toys, the social media patterns of exclusion, the long history of emotional neglect documented through testimony and time-stamped evidence. Each detail was a thread, and Claudia wove them with surgical precision until the tapestry was undeniable. My father's attorney tried to interrupt twice. Both times the judge shut him down. Then Claudia placed Rachel's screenshots on the record. The private group chat, the mocking comments about my children, and the line from Brianna that silenced the entire room. I told Dad to get the kids' gifts for my boys instead. I wanted to see what it felt like to steal her kids' joy. The judge's pen froze mid-scribble. He looked up, eyebrows raised. These were verified, he asked. Yes, Your Honor, Claudia replied. Time-stamped, connected to known contacts, and provided voluntarily by a family member in the group. Silence. My father's face drained of color. Brianna's lips parted, trembling, not in remorse, but in panic, because she had never imagined her words would be spoken aloud in a courtroom. The judge leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Mrs. Langford, he said, you may proceed. And Claudia, God bless her, closed with the statement I wrote late one night. My heart poured onto paper. I'm not trying to sever my children from their family. I'm trying to protect them from a version of love that must be earned through obedience. I grew up believing I was never enough. I refused to let my children inherit that pain. When she finished, the judge didn't even pretend to deliberate. Petition denied, he said. No visitation rights. No standing for future petitions. This court recognizes a pattern of malice and emotional harm. Just like that, it was over. But the universe had one more twist, because as we stood to leave, Brianna made the final mistake of her life. She leaned toward me, just loud enough for her father to hear too, and sneered. Hope you enjoy Grandma's lake cabin, Camille. You'll never be her favorite. I turned, slowly, deliberately, looked her right in the eyes. Oh, I said calmly, I did enjoy it. Her brow creased. What? I let a small smile form at the corner of my mouth. I already took the kids there last weekend. Fixed the dock, built a fire, beautiful place. Brianna's face twisted. You're lying. I tilted my head. No, I'm not. Then I looked at my father finally directly. She changed the will, months ago. You never even noticed. His mouth opened, then shut, then opened again. It was the first time in my entire life I'd seen him truly speechless. Ethan slid an arm around my waist. Guess you should have read the paperwork, he said. For once, no one argued. No yelling, no accusations. Just quiet, cold, realization. Everything they thought they controlled, everything they believed they were entitled to, was slipping through their fingers. In the weeks after spring began to creep into the world, the trees budding. The air, softening the lake, thawing just enough to catch sunlight like scattered diamonds. We didn't tell Liam or Maisie anything. They stayed blissfully unaware, protected, loved. We took them back to the cabin, our cabin now. We grilled hot dogs, built a swing in the backyard, skipped rocks across the lake. Liam caught a frog and named it Captain Ribbit with great ceremony. Maisie sang a song about marshmallows into a stick like it was a microphone. The four of us were a world to ourselves, the way it should have always been. One evening, after the kids fell asleep and the fire had burned down to embers, I sat on the porch alone. The lake was gold at the edges where the sun dipped into the water, the sky slowly turning to lavender. And in that stillness, I thought about my father, about Brianna, about the years I spent trying to squeeze myself into the shape they wanted. And then I thought about my life now. Ethan. My children, my art, my community, my peace. They had spent their entire lives trying to make me small. And in pushing me out of their family, they had given me space to build my own. A stronger one, a kinder one. A family that wasn't earned through obedience or silence or sacrifice. A family built on presence, protection, and love. As the sun sank behind the trees, I closed my eyes and breathed in the cold lake air. For the first time in my life, I wasn't yearning for their approval. I wasn't craving a seat at their table. I had built my own table, and everyone who sat at it truly belonged there. They had written me off, but I had written my own ending, and this time no one could take it.